mornings. We start with breaking news from Hong Kong. The territory's leader, Carrie Lam, is right now on television, being broadcast across the territory, responding to 5 demands made by protesters. Remember, there has been 13 weeks of protest there, but the big news out of Hong Kong is that Carrie Lam has formally withdrawn that proposed extradition bill. It is the bill that sparked all of these protests. It would have allowed Hong Kong citizens to be sent to mainland China to face trial. Let's have a listen to Carrie Lam, who is on television right now.
Income distribution, social justice and mobility, and opportunities for our young people, as well as how the public could be fully engaged in government's decision-making. We can discuss all these issues in our new dialogue platform. Fellow citizens, lingering violence is damaging the very foundations of our society, especially the rule of law. Some people, though not many, attacked the central government's office in Hong Kong and vandalized the national flag and national emblem. This is a direct challenge to one country, two systems. Both have put Hong Kong in a highly vulnerable and dangerous situation. Irrespective of our grievances or the depth of discontentment towards the government, we cannot agree or accept that violence is a solution to our problems. Our foremost priority now is to end violence, to safeguard the rule of law, and to restore order and safety in society. As such, the government has to strictly enforce the law against all violent and illegal acts. My team and I hope that the 4 actions just announced can help our society to move forward. Let's replace conflicts with conversations, and let's look for solutions.
That was a statement made by Carrie Lam, Hong Kong's chief executive, and she was just formally announcing the withdrawal of that controversial extradition bill that would have allowed Hong Kong citizens to be sent to mainland China for trial. It was one of the key demands of protesters. Remember, these massive protests taking place over the past 13 weeks or so. Many people just looking at social media, though, many of those protesters saying this is not enough. They have other demands now that they want to be met, and those demands and calls for change have been growing over the weeks of protest. So Carrie Lam attempted to address some of those as well. She said there would be no independent probe into police actions. Regarding the establishment of an independent probe, she said, we think we should not set up a commission of inquiry and should leave the case to the Independent Police Complaints Council. There's also been calls for an amnesty as well, granted to those who have been arrested during these weeks of protest. She addressed that as well, saying calls for amnesty are unacceptable to any city with the rule of law, and added that references to protests as riots have to be handled in accordance to prosecution guidelines. And then a key demand as well from one of the protesters that we've heard, one of the many demands, but a key demand from them is on universal suffrage. And on that, Carrie Lam said this should be debated pragmatically amid a peaceful atmosphere. It will only otherwise further divide society. So Carrie Lam saying universal suffrage should be debated pragmatically, and there needs to be a peaceful atmosphere. It will further divide society. So calls there from Carrie Lam too to end violence and to safeguard the rule of law. Let's take you straight to Steve McDonell, who has been watching Carrie Lam and joins me now live from Hong Kong. Let's just start with this key thing that Carrie Lam said, the withdrawal of the extradition bill. Steve, this is a dramatic U-turn, it seems.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, 3 months ago, this all started when hundreds of thousands of people took to the streets in Hong Kong opposing this very unpopular bill allowing for extradition to mainland Chinese courts controlled by the Communist Party. Now, at the time, they were completely dismissed by Hong Kong's leader. Fast forward to now, and we're seeing these weekly clashes on the streets with petrol bombs, rubber bullets and tear gas in this financial centre. And Carrie Lam, by her own reckoning, by her own judgment, says she's responsible for this unforgivable havoc, as she put it, to a meeting of business leaders. And now this humiliating back down for her and for Beijing. They've gone along with one of the key demands of the protest movement, that is that this bill be officially withdrawn. Now, she says that when this will happen will be when the Legislative Council meets again sort of officially in its full form. That's in October. But this announcement, as I say, this has been one of the main 5 demands of the protest movement. That's now the protesters have won on that front.
They've
now,
won on that front, Steve. They've won on that front, but not with some of these other key demands. So will they be satisfied? Will this stop the protest and their movement?
No, exactly. This is precisely the problem. The longer it's taken for this debate to be resolved, the broader the activists' demands have become. And now they're saying they want a genuine independent inquiry into the police force and alleged links between some officers and the underworld. They're saying they want universal suffrage in this city. Now, I think for many activists now, they'll think, well, we won this one, why don't we just keep pushing forward? I think there may be certain elements of the movement, especially more peaceful, the broader elements of this movement might say, well, we've won that. That's really what we wanted in the first place. No need for us to go out there and march every week. But, there are tens of thousands of radicalised, hardline, mostly students prepared to get arrested. I don't think they will stop. They will just think, time to keep pushing forward and seeing if we can get a few or more of these demands met.
Steve, I'm just looking at the 4 actions proposed by Carrie Lam. The government formally withdrawing the bill, obviously supporting the IPCC. Carrie Lam and her minister saying they're going to go out to communities to talk to them about their grievances and find solutions. An independent study will be conducted, she says, on the root causes of societal issues. All of this, I just wonder what the response will be to these actions.
Well, having an independent inquiry, I guess it depends on the wording of it, is also one of their demands. Now, maybe by her calling it a study or something is a face-saving way of kind of going along with one of those demands. Perhaps that will help as well. I mean, you've had many in the business community here who've been saying to the government, why not withdraw the bill? You've said it's dead anyway, that you should have done this months ago. They've also said, why not have an inquiry? If you get, an independent observer, a judge or something to have an inquiry, what's wrong with that? So we'll just have to see what shape that inquiry takes, whether or not it's enough to satisfy those, many thousands of protesters who gather here every weekend, especially. As for the, this existing, she's inquiring into the police. She's adding a few more people to this structure that's already there within the government. That won't be enough for the protest movement because they don't trust that structure. They say that's just part of the formal police complaints procedure. You can put a few more people on it. That's not enough. They want a broad independent inquiry separate from that, looking into police behaviour. And, many would say an inquiry would be a good thing because actually it would quite potentially exonerate the police for a lot of the things they've been accused of, because people are also not seeing the violence that's been directed towards the police, the bricks that are thrown at them, the projectiles, which has led to some of the tough responses from the riot police. But if we go back to the big news today, though, that Carrie Lam is backing down on this bill, the extradition bill finally gone. It's a huge victory for people power in this city, and Beijing will be potentially worried that message gets through to the mainland, that if you take to the streets, you can win. And this is why it's taken so long for them to formally withdraw this bill.
But Beijing, Steve, they were the ones that would have dictated the withdrawal of this bill?
Well, there's been widespread speculation that the government here didn't have the authority to withdraw the bill, even if it wanted to. And this wasn't helped when a reporter asked Carrie Lam directly at a press conference, do you have the authority to withdraw the bill? She wouldn't answer the question. She was asked several times and wouldn't say that she did. So people have thought it's Beijing calling the shots anyway. And this leaked speech she gave to business figures seemed to be showing that as well. She said that she couldn't even step down if she wanted to. Now, later on, she's tried to say that that's because of pressure she's put on herself, but it's been interpreted again as Beijing being the ones who could really would be deciding whether she would resign or whether she should stay in place.
Steve, can
so
I
the
quickly...
fact that she's made this announcement would have to have been cleared by the central government.
And can I quickly ask you what kind of reaction there's going to be in terms of the stock market and business in Hong Kong to this?
Well, business has been calling for the bill to be withdrawn. You have business chambers. I mean, for example, the Australian Business Chamber here was very clear, made a public statement saying that they should withdraw the bill and have an inquiry. You have many in the business community who've said that they're the two easiest things for the government to do to try and take the heat out of this. I think it'll be welcomed by the business sector.
OK, Steve, good to see you. We'll talk to you again, I'm sure, throughout the evening in Hong Kong.